A cold click echoed through the command room, bathed in blue LED light. With a single press, the entire coordination system of North Star Airlines shut down. Captain Ethan Cole, 44 years old, stared straight into the stunned face of CEO Gregory Stanton on the online screen. His voice was deep and steady, but every word cut like a blade. "You pulled me off my own flight because of my skin color. Now watch as I pull every one of your planes out of the sky." There was no sound, only the pounding heartbeat of those watching. 3 hours earlier, Ethan had been the very symbol of composure and discipline the captain every airline trusted. A black man with a calm smile, silver at his temples, bright eyes, and a voice that could steady passengers through any storm. Born in the American South, Ethan had been called everything except captain. He had flown through real storms and storms of life, enduring skeptical stares, half-jokes and comments like, "People like you belong in engineering, not in a cockpit." But he never argued. He let his skill do the talking. From being the first black student to graduate in aerospace engineering from MIT, to serving 15 years as an outstanding U.S. Air Force pilot, and finally becoming North Star Airlines' most trusted captain and a member of its digital advisory board. He had logged thousands of hours without a single error report. A pilot every crew wanted to work with because he was both firm and kind. To Ethan, the sky wasn't just a workplace, it was home. But that morning, he felt a different kind of wind, cold and heavy. At 5 o'clock, his military-grade watch beeped softly. He woke as always, black coffee weather charts, a few notes about his route from Atlanta to San Francisco. Then the phone rang, and his hand froze. His daughter Naomi's voice trembled through tears. A college freshman, the same girl he once taught to be proud of who she was, now sobbed as she told him about the note taped to her dorm door. "You belong in the servants' quarters, not in the student halls." Ethan went still. For several seconds he heard nothing but his own ragged breathing. The old pain he thought he had buried for years split wide open. He wanted to drive to her campus immediately, but duty called. All he could do was comfort Naomi, then call the dean's office to demand an investigation. Before hanging up, he told her, "Don't let them make you forget who you are. You're the daughter of a pilot who learned to stay balanced in the middle of storms." Yet when he put down the phone, his hand still shook. A man trained to stay calm through turbulence now felt the sky inside him collapsing. On the drive to the airport, dawn light spilled through the windshield, reflecting off his tense face. He inhaled deeply. Never carry emotions into the cockpit, the unbreakable rule he had lived by for 20 years. Somehow he locked everything inside, sealing the storm within his chest. As he entered the operations center, familiar voices greeted him. Kevin Miller, the young co-pilot he had once trained, smiled and handed him the flight file. "Clear skies today, Captain." Ethan nodded slightly, his tone cool. "Glass skies, Kevin, the kind that shatter easily." Together they reviewed the flight plan, everything perfect, until the dispatcher added, "Oh, this flight has a special VIP, Mr. Leonard Wilkes, a potential investor for the Asia expansion project. The CIO personally arranged his seat in first class." Ethan frowned slightly. Experience told him when a CEO gets involved in seating trouble usually follows. 45 minutes before takeoff. The cockpit was ready, the crew in position. Ethan took seat 2A in first class, the designated spot for deadhead pilots between flights. It was his professional routine. Sit there, review wind charts, check weather updates on his tablet. The cabin was still empty, the warm yellow light falling gently across his calm face. Outside, the sky was flawless crystal blue, motionless. No one could have imagined that within minutes his entire career would be thrown into chaos, right in the place he had mastered all his life. A voice broke the quiet, polite cold, stripped of warmth. "Excuse me, sir. May I see your ticket?" Vanessa Clark, the lead flight attendant, stood before him. Ethan looked up. He was clearly in uniform name badge, gleaming 4 golden stripes on his shoulders. He smiled politely, handed over his ticket and crew ID. Vanessa nodded, but there was something strange in her eyes, a flicker of doubt as if she was silently asking, "Is someone like you really a captain?" She walked away, but minutes later returned louder this time. "Excuse me, may I check your ticket again? There seems to be some mix-up with this seat." Ethan glanced around as other attendants began to notice. He remained calm. "There's no mix-up. This seat is assigned to the deadheading captain." Before Vanessa could reply, the cabin door opened. A silver-haired man in a grey suit stepped in with the stride of someone used to being obeyed. Leonard Wilkes, the $120 million investor, scanned the cabin, then pointed directly at Ethan. "That's my seat. Not a question, not a request, an order." His voice was firm, clipped, steeped in entitlement. A company representative checked the tablet. "Mr. Wilkes, you're in seat 2B. Seat 2A belongs to Captain Cole." Wilkes raised an eyebrow, smirking. "No. I always sit by the right side window. It's part of my customer profile." Ethan started to rise out of courtesy, but stopped, partly out of discipline, partly out of pride. He spoke softly, still professional. "I can switch to another seat in first class, if that makes you more comfortable, sir." Wilkes didn't even look at him. He spoke to Vanessa instead. "Why is he here? Pilots belong in the cockpit, not beside me." The air froze. Every gaze in the cabin turned toward Ethan. 1 second. 2. 3. The silence stretched, and within it, Ethan felt the storm building. In a few hours, that storm would tear down the career he had spent a lifetime building. But at that moment, under the gentle cabin lights of first class, Ethan had no idea that this very storm would mark the beginning of a revolution called justice. The air in the first-class cabin thickened, as if all the oxygen had been drained away. Ethan Cole remained still, his hands resting on his knees, his eyes fixed on the window. The sky outside was calm, but inside the cabin, a storm had just begun. Vanessa Clark, the chief flight attendant, glanced at Leonard Wilkes before turning back to Ethan, her voice uneasy. "I'm sorry, Captain. It seems there's been a small misunderstanding. I'll take care of it right away." "Take care of it." The phrase fell like a sentence. Ethan knew exactly what take care of it meant in the airline world, a polite way of telling a black man to yield to avoid trouble. He replied calmly, "There's no misunderstanding, Ms. Clark. I'm the deadheading captain, and this seat was assigned by the airline." Vanessa bit her lip, her eyes darting to Wilkes, who looked irritated, as though the very air around him had been contaminated by Ethan's presence. "I don't care about your company's policies," Wilkes snapped. "I'm a personal friend of CEO Gregory Stanton, and I will sit right here. Handle it, or I'll call him myself." Other first-class passengers began to glance over a few, whispered, some averted their eyes into their glasses of wine. The cabin, usually the symbol of elegance, had become a stage for a public humiliation. Ethan drew a slow breath, his voice steady and cold. "Mr. Wilkes, I'm simply occupying the seat assigned to me by the company. You're welcome to choose any other open seat, or wait while the crew confirms the arrangement." But Wilkes wasn't listening. He turned away, pulled out his phone, and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Greg, it's me. There's a black guy sitting in my seat, says he's some kind of captain. Fix this right now. I'm not flying with that kind of arrogance." Ethan heard every word that black guy. It felt like gasoline poured straight into his chest. Every pair of eyes turned toward him, some sympathetic, most silent. The silence of complicity. Minutes later, Bradley Cooper, the cabin supervisor, hurried in, looking uneasy. "Captain Cole," he began cautiously, "would you mind moving temporarily to economy class? Mr. Wilkes is a very important guest, and the CEO just called, asking us to handle this flexibly." Ethan looked up, his eyes sharp as steel. "You're asking me, the company's captain, to give up my seat because he's friends with the CEO, not give up?" Bradley stammered, "Just temporarily. We'll compensate you with bonus miles." A dry laugh escaped Ethan's throat. So that was it. At North Star Airlines, a man's worth could be measured in frequent flyer miles. "Bradley," he said softly, yet loud enough for all to hear. "Do you remember the airline's safety regulation? Deadheading pilots are required to sit close to the cockpit in case of emergencies." Bradley avoided his gaze. "I understand, Captain, but Mr. Wilkes, he could jeopardize the $120 million project." That answer hit Ethan like a blade, straight through his faith. He had believed this company valued safety and integrity above all. Now he knew both had a price, and his CEO was willing to sell them for the comfort of a white investor. Wilkes turned back, his voice dripping with disdain. "You hear that they're trying to save your job. Be smart and get moving. And remember, know your place." Those 3 words, "know your place," landed in the air like a hammer. Vanessa flinched. Kevin, the co-pilot, stood frozen at the cockpit door. Bradley's jaw locked. Ethan rose slowly, every motion deliberate, composed like a pilot lifting off through a real storm. He spoke just loud enough for those near him to hear. "I know my place. It's to keep hundreds of lives safe. Not to sell my soul for a few numbers on an investment chart." The cabin fell silent. Then a voice crackled through the radio, dry and cold. "Security requested in first class. Repeat assistance required in first class." 2 security officers entered. Their eyes met, betraying hesitation. They knew this was wrong, but orders were orders. "Sir, we need you to step off the aircraft while we resolve this." Ethan didn't resist. His tone was low, deliberate. "Then I'll leave. But make sure it's recorded. I'm being removed from my assigned seat in uniform because a man refused to sit next to me." As he stood, several passengers raised their phones, cameras flashing, capturing the gold stripes on his shoulders, symbols of pride, now serving as proof of humiliation. Kevin stood stiff in the doorway, his voice trembling as Ethan passed. "I'm sorry, Captain." "Don't apologize to me," Ethan replied. "Apologize to yourself, if you stay silent after witnessing this." As he stepped out of the cabin, the metallic sound of the aircraft door closing behind him felt like the door of his career sealing shut. Walking down the jet bridge, the pale neon lights spilled across his uniform, framing the image of a man stripped of his dignity, not because he did wrong, but because he dared to sit where he belonged. Passengers in the terminal turned to stare. A captain, still in full uniform, escorted by security. Curious eyes, whispered words, and the faint glow of phone screens recording it all. Ethan kept his back straight. He had learned never to bow even when the world demanded it. Outside, rain began to fall. Droplets streaked down the glass, reflecting his face, not angry anymore, just heavy with disappointment. He had believed in North Star, believed it stood for opportunity and equality, but all it took was one powerful man's frown for the entire system to bend. As he stepped out of the terminal, the radio crackled behind him. Situation handled VIP passenger, satisfied, preparing for takeoff. Takeoff. The word cut into his chest like a knife. The plane he was supposed to command now departed without him. In seat 2A, where he once sat, an arrogant man sipped champagne. Ethan lifted his eyes to the stormy sky above. In them burned not shame, but a vow. If they think I'm just a seat they can remove, he whispered, then I'll show them some people are born to fly, and no prejudice can ever bring them down. Inside his small suitcase, his laptop screen still glowed. One line flashed across the monitor. Access granted Project Aurora System, Administrator E. Cole. Ethan stared at it for a few seconds, then closed the lid. The storm inside him had just taken flight. The rain fell steadily through the afternoon, casting a cold grey shroud over Atlanta Airport. Ethan Cole sat silently in the pilot's lounge, still damp in his uniform, gripping a cup of cold coffee. Outside the glass North Star Flight 1852, the flight he should have been commanding was taxiing down the runway, carrying investor Leonard Wilkes and the sting of humiliation that lingered in the air. He watched it take off, and in the jet's exhaust glow, he saw himself, a man betrayed by the very organization he had devoted his life to. 2 hours later, Ethan received a message from Human Resources, Mr. Cole. We will arrange another flight to San Francisco for you this evening. And please refrain from interviews or posting anything online until an official company statement is released. The voice of the PR representative Amanda Ross sounded soft, yet it cut like steel. Ethan replied tersely, I have nothing to say, at least not until justice speaks. He shut off his phone and opened his own. Hundreds of messages flooded the screen. Colleagues, former trainees, industry friends, all had seen the video of him being escorted from first class. The hashtags #FlyWhileBlack and Justice for Captain Cole began trending across Twitter. One comment caught his eye. If a uniformed captain can be dragged out, what chance do the rest of us have on this flight? The question ignited a spark inside him. Ethan boarded the next flight with a hollow feeling. The flight attendants glanced at him, forced smiles betraying their unease. One of them, a young brunette named Lucy, quietly handed him a cup of water and whispered, I'm sorry, Captain. Today it was awful. Ethan nodded in thanks, saying nothing. He knew she was afraid too. At North Star, a single wrong reaction could cost someone their job. Below, the city lights streaked like wounds across the night. Ethan wondered how many others in the airline had been treated like him too, afraid to speak up. And he asked himself, did he have the strength to break the cycle? When the plane landed in San Francisco, his phone rang incessantly. The first message was from Lauren, his wife. We saw the clip. Naomi cried all day. Are you okay? Ethan stared at the text, his fingers pausing before replying, I'm fine, but perhaps everything is about to change. The next message was from Gregory Stanton, CEO of North Star. We need to meet. 8 p.m. Grand Plaza Hotel Conference Room. No apology, no greeting, just an order. When Ethan entered the 15th floor conference room, the air was thick enough to cut. Stanton sat at the head of the table, dark blue vest eyes, lowered in the manner of someone used to controlling others with power rather than reason. Beside him sat Patricia Winters, head of human resources, and James Morgan, chief legal officer. A thick file lay in the center of the table, the cover reading, Incident Report Flight 1852. Ethan Stanton began. We regret this morning's events. This was entirely a misunderstanding. Ethan's lip curled slightly. A misunderstanding that led security to remove the captain from his assigned seat in front of passengers recording video. Patricia interjected, voice cautiously light. Mr. Wilkes is an important investor. Certain special circumstances required flexible handling. We could not allow personal emotions to interfere with company interests. Personal emotions, Ethan repeated. When a white man looks me in the face and says, "Know your place," is that personal emotion or racism? Stanton avoided his gaze. James Morgan pushed the file toward Ethan. We have prepared a press release. You just need to sign. It states that the seating incident was a misunderstanding, not related to racial discrimination. In exchange, the company will guarantee your position and reputation. Ethan opened the file. Each line felt like a knife. North Star Airlines affirms that the incident between Captain Ethan Cole and passenger Leonard Wilkes was a booking error and does not reflect the company's policies of equality and respect. No apology, no accountability, just a lie inked in fine print. I will not sign. The words came out crisp like wind, tearing across the cockpit. Patricia inhaled sharply, trying to remain composed. Ethan, consider your career. Mr. Wilkes is investing $120 million in the airline. We cannot risk upsetting him over a misunderstanding. So my dignity is worth less than $120 million, Ethan asked, his voice low like wind before a storm. Stanton looked up, impatient. This is not about dignity. This is business reality. I advise you to take a few weeks off with pay to let things settle. Ethan surveyed the room, the glass walls reflecting the yellow lights, faces feigning professionalism to hide cowardice. He understood this was not just an internal discussion, it was a warning. I will not take leave. I will file a formal discrimination complaint. Morgan adjusted his tie, speaking in a cold, detached tone. You are entitled to do that. However, the investigation process will suspend you without pay until a conclusion is reached. That is policy, a threat wrapped in bureaucratic language. Ethan nodded. Then I accept. He stood. Stanton's eyes flashed, anger and fear mingling. You are destroying your own career, Cole. No, Ethan replied. I am saving its soul. That night he returned to his hotel room. The San Francisco sea breeze blew through the window, carrying salt and the distant whistle of ships. Ethan opened his laptop and began writing a detailed report of the incident. He documented every detail, every hour, every word like a pilot logging the last flight before a storm. Then an email arrived. From an anonymous address. Subject, they are plotting against you. Ethan opened it. Inside was an attachment, a North Star internal memorandum. Instructions for the communications department shape public perception, describe him as stubborn, difficult to cooperate with, prone to misunderstandings in communication. At the bottom, a handwritten note. Prepare personnel alternatives, prevent Cole from appearing before the media. Ethan sat in silence for a long while, then smiled a tired but lucid smile. So this is how they protect the company's reputation. He called Aaron Mitchell, his old lawyer friend. Aaron listened and said simply, They are building a case to discredit you, Ethan. Record every call, preserve all evidence. And be careful. They will not play fair. I'm not seeking justice for myself, Ethan replied. I'm seeking it for everyone who was ever forced into silence. The call ended. On the screen, the Aurora project icon still blinked. The words, System Access, Granted Administrator, E. Cole, glowed in the darkness. Ethan stared at it, hearing Lauren's voice echo in his mind. I trust you. But don't let them make you lose who you are. He typed a command, then paused. The cursor blinked on the screen like a heartbeat. He did not yet know what he would do, but he knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow North Star would no longer be the calm sky they thought it was. The night in San Francisco was cold and foggy. Ethan Cole sat in his small hotel room, the pale yellow light falling across his rugged but determined face. His laptop was open before him, the Aurora system blinking steadily, signaling that his administrative privileges remained intact, a power few knew existed, and even fewer dared to imagine. He drew a long breath, recalling the moment he had been dragged from his first-class seat. That humiliation was not merely personal. It was a reminder that discrimination still lingered deeply embedded in every corner of the airline. But Ethan no longer feared it. He knew that if used wisely, this authority could exert enough pressure to force the company to confront its wrongdoing. The phone rang. Ethan looked at the caller ID, Ravi Desai, former digital systems architect, and his partner in Project Aurora. Ethan, I saw the video, Ravi said, quickly, his voice trembling just enough to betray his concern. They're building a case against you. The entire internal PR system trying to paint you as stubborn, uncooperative, difficult. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. So they think I'll bow no. But they'll do everything to make you stay silent. Ravi emphasized a detail Ethan had almost forgotten. The back door is still there. During beta testing, we created admin privileges to test the system without interruptions. I thought it was deleted, but it's still active. Ethan opened his laptop and entered the old credentials. The system recognized him as administrator. Everything was still under his control. He attempted to access the Asian project budget module, $120 million locked. There was no impact on the flight system, no interference with flight safety. Yet all financial decisions were now in his hands. A thrill and tension spread through him. Tension because this power was a double-edged sword excitement, because he had finally found the leverage to force the airline to face the truth. The next morning, an email from North Star appeared, Notice of Employment Status Review. They were preparing to terminate him. Ethan smirked a quiet acknowledgement to fate. They think they can extinguish the fire inside me. Wrong. He sent a message to Angela Rivera, the pilot's union representative, immediate assistance required. They are building a false case. Part of the network of black employees can document the system-wide discrimination pattern. I need them on my side. Over the next 48 hours, Ethan reached out to pilots, flight attendants, and technical staff who had been mistreated but forced into silence by non-disclosure agreements or fear of losing their jobs. Each story, each piece of evidence, each testimony was compiled, forming a model of systemic racial bias that North Star had tried to bury. He knew media pressure would dictate the speed of change. The viral video from the previous day had spread across the web, and the hashtag Flying While Black was trending nationwide. Numerous artists and influencers publicly voiced support, calling for a boycott of North Star. Pilots from other airlines sent emails expressing solidarity. The company's stock fell 7% in just 2 days. Hundreds of millions in market capitalization evaporated from a single few-minute clip. That afternoon, Ethan received an unexpected call from Eleanor Michaels, an independent board member. Ethan, I know you're under pressure. Some board members want to hear the truth directly from you before approving the budget. We can arrange for you to attend tomorrow's meeting. His heart raced. This was a rare opportunity to face CEO Stanton and Wilkes, directly present the evidence publicly while still having support. I will attend. But it must be a fair confrontation. He spent the entire evening preparing, constructing a detailed timeline of the incident, archiving all viral videos, internal emails, and employee messages, drafting proposals for anti-discrimination policy reform, and designing a technical plan locking the Asian budget module in case of termination, ensuring only he could unlock it. Every detail, every word, every frame was meticulously documented, forming the foundation of the moral authority Ethan was about to wield. Night fell, and he walked along the San Francisco shoreline. The cold wind swept through waves crashing onto the sand, a reminder everything was about to change. He thought of Naomi in her dorm, and Miles, his 19-year-old son, still learning to stand firm in a world full of prejudice. He told himself, "If I give up, what will my children learn? If I surrender, justice loses its chance to take flight." Back at the hotel, Ethan opened his laptop again. The Aurora screen glowed. The line read, "System access granted Administrator E. Cole." The cold blue light reflected on his face, his eyes burning with determination. He knew that tomorrow the storm would no longer be confined to the airplane cabin. It would enter the boardroom. He inhaled deeply and closed his eyes for a second. In the absolute silence, his mind echoed one thought. They tried to extinguish me, but they never knew the fire inside me cannot be put out. His heartbeat quickened. Everything was ready. Tomorrow, North Star would see justice is not something that exists only on paper. It can take flight carried by a pilot who had been humiliated. And across the dark waters, the pier lights reflected off the ocean like a promise. Tonight is quiet, tomorrow will erupt. The next morning, North Star Airlines headquarters in Dallas gleamed with cold metallic light, reflected across the high-rise glass like a fortress of power. In the 48th floor conference room, fluorescent lights cast harsh illumination across CEO Gregory Stanton's tense face, his eyes fixed on the figures for the $120 million expenditure, though his smile could not hide his worry. The board of directors sat around the glossy mahogany table, Leonard Wilkes beside Stanton, his hands gripping a coffee cup, eyes scanning everyone like a hawk. Everything looked normal, but the air was so thick it could be cut with a knife. Suddenly the door opened. Ethan Cole entered crisp in his captain's uniform, standing tall, eyes cold, yet proud. Beside him was Diane Harper, an independent board member who had ensured his attendance. The room fell silent. Leonard Wilkes let out a sigh, but Ethan ignored it. "We invited you to present your perspective," Diane said, her voice calm but clear regarding the previous incident and its consequences for the company. Ethan looked around the board members' eyes, full of unease. Stanton, sitting stiffly, Wilkes frowning. He set his laptop case on the table, opening it like a shield, and began his presentation. On the screen, the heading read, "Timeline and Evidence Flight, 1852 Incident." Viral videos, internal emails, employee messages, every detail of the prior day, organized chronologically. Ethan flipped slides, eyes scanning the room, voice steady and strong. This is not merely a first-class seat. This is evidence of the systemic discrimination North Star has tried to bury. 27 official complaints over 5 years, all handled in secret, no one disciplined, and no policy changes whatsoever. The conference room murmured. Some board members exchanged uncomfortable glances. Wilkes was speechless, eyes red with anger. "You're manipulating the data," he shouted. "No," Ethan replied calmly. "I am presenting the truth you tried to hide. This is real data from your own system." He tapped his tablet, opening the budget approval module for the Asia expansion, $120 million. Every number, every approval command froze. A bright red alert appeared on the conference room screen. Budget approval temporarily suspended. Contact System Administrator, E. Cole for resolution. Silence fell. Stanton slammed his hands on the table, enraged. "Are you trying to force the company? This is illegal." "No," Ethan replied, his tone low and sharp. "I am exercising the authority legally granted to me through Project Aurora. I am merely preventing this budget from being approved until ethical and discrimination issues are addressed." The board leaned toward the screen, eyes wide. Some hesitated. Some exchanged worried glances, should they yield to him. Leonard Wilkes stood face flushed red. "I will withdraw from this investment if this isn't resolved immediately. This is extortion." Ethan remained silent, eyes fixed on the screen. "This is not extortion. This is an opportunity for North Star Airlines to face the consequences of trampling employee dignity. All decisions regarding $120 million are suspended without affecting any flights until justice is served." Chaos erupted in the room. Stanton called IT frantically, hands, shaking eyes scanning the screen. "We need to unlock the system immediately." Ethan only nodded. "Check it. I will prove I am still the legitimate admin. My system privileges have never been revoked." The head of IT replied over the speaker. "Mr. Cole is correct. All privileges are valid. We cannot override without your approval." Wilkes roared. "This is criminal. We have to arrest him." "I have not breached anything," Ethan emphasized. "I am merely exercising the authority granted to me." Pressure radiated throughout the room. The board split into factions, one group concerned with financial and reputational risk, the other with ethics and public opinion. North Star's stock reacted instantly. The ticker flashed red. Every passing minute, the company lost money, its reputation eroded, and Ethan stood firm, calm, unwavering. Leonard Wilkes attempted to approach Ethan's tablet, but was blocked by the board security. "He is a legitimate admin," one person said. "Any interference would take hours without success," it confirmed. Ethan turned to the board. "You had 2 days to do the right thing. Instead, you chose to destroy reputations and make my family suffer. Now the choice to fix it is yours." A board member spoke up. "We agree the issue must be resolved, but it must protect the investment while addressing the matter." Ethan pressed a button, his voice calm yet decisive. "I want first public acknowledgement of racial discrimination. Second, implementation of anti-discrimination policies with independent oversight. Third, a company-wide diversity program with metrics and regular reporting. And I want to retain my position of authority to ensure these measures are carried out seriously." The room fell silent, all eyes on him. Ethan pressed gently. On the conference screen, a red message appeared. "Budget approval suspended. Contact Administrator, E. Cole." Every figure froze. No one in the room could move forward. Stock continued to drop. Employees reported cascading system issues. Media calls, messages, and emails poured in. Public outcry erupted, flying while black trending across social media. Artists, influencers, pilots from other airlines publicly supported Ethan, and through it all Ethan remained standing cold composed. A silent warrior amid the storm, dignity intact, unshaken. The fire within him had ignited. Today, North Star Airlines was no longer an absolute fortress of power. Today, justice began to take flight. The next day, San Francisco woke to a heavy, misty rain, but the events of the previous day still haunted news outlets, social media, and the boardrooms of North Star Airlines. The clip of Black Captain Ethan Cole being escorted from first class on Flight 1852 went viral instantly. The hashtag #FlyingWhileBlack flooded Twitter, Instagram, and aviation forums. In his hotel room, Ethan sat before his laptop. The warm yellow light illuminated his face, eyes burning with determination. Every message, email, and tweet carried the same demand: justice must be served. But among them were also attacks, racist remarks, cruel comments aimed at tarnishing his reputation. He clicked through each one, reading carefully, feeling the pulse of social media. This was not just a personal fight. This was a battle for the entire airline industry, for those who had been overlooked and silenced. Angela Rivera Pilots Union representative messaged Ethan, "I've contacted the black pilots and flight attendants who have faced pressure. They are ready to support you. We will collect evidence statements, everything to formally pressure the board." Ethan nodded, closed his eyes, and drew a deep breath. He knew the power lay not only in his admin privileges in the Aurora system, but also in his allies' witnesses who had remained silent out of fear of losing their jobs. That morning he began secretly calling employees across the network: pilots, flight attendants, technical staff, and ground personnel. Each shared experiences of discrimination, denied promotions, or unreasonable reprimands, all because of their skin color. Each story, each testimony, each detail was meticulously recorded by Ethan. A pattern of systemic discrimination gradually emerged. North Star Airlines had not only ignored individual cases, but had deliberately concealed incidents to protect investor interests. Meanwhile, the media and public opinion exploded. Artists, influencers, and pilots from other airlines publicly supported Ethan. Some called for boycotts of North Star until the company apologized and made amends. Competitor airlines launched programs supporting black employees, promoting fairness and transparency. North Star's stock dropped 7% in 2 days, losing tens of millions in market value. Ethan sat quietly in his hotel room, staring at the blinking Aurora screen. System access granted Administrator E. Cole. He smiled faintly. Power was still in his hands. He understood that what he was about to do would not only restore his own dignity, but force the entire airline to confront the truth. A few hours later, his phone rang. The caller was Diane Michaels, an independent board member. "Ethan, we can arrange for you to attend tomorrow's board meeting. Some members want to hear the truth directly from you. This is a chance for them to understand the seriousness of the discrimination." Ethan drew a deep breath. "I will attend. But this meeting must be fair and transparent." He spent the evening preparing everything, compiling viral videos, internal emails, messages, and previously hidden reports, constructing a detailed timeline of events from the morning of the incident, preparing proposals for company-wide anti-discrimination. Reforms, drafting a technical plan. If he were terminated, he would lock the $120 million budget to force the board to confront the issue. Every detail was meticulously documented. Every image, every email, every piece of evidence became a weapon, preparing him for the most important confrontation of his career. That night, Ethan walked along the San Francisco shoreline. The cold wind swept in waves crashing onto the sand, as if reminding him, everything is about to change. He thought of his daughter Naomi in college and his son Miles. If I give up, what will my children learn? If I stay silent, justice loses its chance to take flight. He closed his eyes for a moment, hearing the waves crashing like the heartbeat of his own resolve. The distant city lights flickered across the horizon, reflecting a dark sky, yet full of possibility. Back at the hotel, he opened his laptop again. The Aurora screen blinked the words, Administrator E. Cole, appearing strong and unwavering. He knew that tomorrow the storm would no longer be confined to the first-class cabin. It would be in the boardroom. Ethan began composing emails to his allies in the Union, prepare the evidence. Every testimony, every act of discrimination must be recorded. We will make North Star face the truth. No one will be left behind. Emails continued. WhatsApp messages, short but precise calls. Every ally understood their role. Pilots confirm deadhead seating rules and the captain's rights. Flight attendants document attitudes and treatment of VIP passengers. Technical staff verify Ethan's legitimate admin privileges and system access. Everything connected into a tightly woven network, a system of checks and balances, where for the first time the oppressed held power. Late at night, Ethan stood by the window, staring at the star-filled but stormy sky. He thought of the future, a more transparent North Star Airlines, an environment free from discrimination, a message to all black employees, do not remain silent. Stand up. A note on the desk before him read, Tomorrow I will show them that silence is not an option. The truth will take flight, and I am the one initiating it. He closed his eyes for a second. In the darkness, a quiet flame ignited, a flame of justice, of dignity, and of courage, a flame no CEO or investor could extinguish. Tomorrow history would remember. Not because he sought revenge, but because some values matter more than profit, and he would defend them to the end. In that moment, Ethan knew the storm was coming, but this time he was in command. The next morning, North Star Airlines Tower in Dallas radiated a cold, proud light. Inside the 48th floor conference room, the board of directors was fully assembled. CEO Gregory Stanton sat at the head of the table. Lips pressed, tight eyes, scanning the room as if trying to seize total control. Beside him, Leonard Wilkes gripped his coffee cup face, flushed with anger and anxiety. Large screens displayed the Asia expansion project's $120 million financial data budget charts blinking, but now everything appeared frozen. The door opened. Ethan Cole entered crisp in his captain's uniform shoulders, straight eyes, cold yet resolute. Diane Michaels, an independent board member who had ensured his attendance, stood beside him. The room fell silent. Not a sound, only the rapid breathing of those feeling the pressure. We invited you to present your perspective, Diane said, her voice low and firm, regarding the previous incident and its consequences for the airline. Ethan set his laptop case on the table and opened it. On the screen, a bright red heading appeared. Timeline and Evidence Flight 1852 Incident. He played viral clips, internal emails, staff messages, all arranged chronologically. Ethan's voice carried evenly sharp yet unwavering. This is not just a first-class seat. This is evidence of a systemic discrimination pattern that North Star Airlines deliberately tried to conceal. 27 complaints over 5 years, all handled in secret, no one held accountable, and no policy changes were made. The room shook with murmurs. Board members furrowed their brows, some exchanging secretive glances, clearly shocked. Wilkes's face reddened, gripping his coffee cup, his body coiling as if trying to use his authority to silence Ethan. "You're manipulating the data," Wilkes barked. "No," Ethan replied calmly. "I am merely presenting the truth you tried to hide. This is real data from North Star Airlines' own system." He tapped his tablet, opening the budget approval module For the Asia expansion, $120 million. Every number froze immediately. A bright red alert appeared on the conference room screen, budget approval temporarily suspended. Contact System Administrator E. Cole for resolution. Silence fell. Stanton slammed his hands on the table, furious. Are you threatening the company? This is illegal, no. Ethan replied, low and cutting. I am exercising the legal admin rights granted through Project Aurora. I am only locking this budget module until justice is enforced. The board leaned toward the screen, some confused, others disbelieving. North Star's stock ticker flashed red. Every passing minute, the company lost millions in market value. Wilkes stood shouting, "This is extortion. Arrest him immediately." Ethan remained calm, eyes like knives. I haven't breached anything. I am only locking the budget. No flights are affected, no safety system compromised. All continues until fairness is restored. No one in the room could access the tablet. Some board members hesitated, splitting into factions, one worried about financial and investor risk, the other concerned with ethics, public perception, and company image. Stanton called IT frantically, hands shaking, eyes scanning the screen. Unlock it immediately. Ethan merely nodded. Check it. I am the legitimate admin. No one can override without my approval. Tension exploded across the room. Wilkes pointed at Ethan, voice loud. If it's not unlocked immediately, I will withdraw the $120 million investment. Ethan did not respond. He looked down at the tablet and pressed a key. All budget modules remained frozen. No flight was affected. No financial decision could be executed. The stock continued to fall, media and social pressure spreading. Every eye in the conference room stared at Ethan in disbelief and anxiety. They had never seen an employee, a captain, use technical authority to force the company to confront truth and ethics. Ethan leaned slightly forward, voice steady. You had 2 days to do the right thing. Instead, you chose to destroy my reputation and threaten my family. Now the power is in my hands. What will you choose? A board member trembled and spoke up. We agree to resolve the issue, but it must protect the investment while addressing the matter. Ethan exhaled slowly, scanning the room. I want first public acknowledgement of racial discrimination. Second, implementation of anti-discrimination policies with independent oversight. Third, a company-wide diversity program with metrics and regular reporting. And I want to retain my position of authority to ensure everything is carried out seriously. The conference room went silent. All budget numbers remained frozen on the screen. No one could interfere. All were under the control of Ethan's moral authority. Wilkes shouted, "This is absurd! I will withdraw the investment if you do not unlock it." Ethan pressed the tablet, voice calm. Prove me wrong. I have violated nothing. The admin rights remain valid. Face the truth, or you will pay the consequences yourselves. Pressure from shareholders, media, and public opinion intensified by the minute. Board members began whispering among themselves, some looking at Leonard Wilkes, some at CEO Stanton. They realized there was no other choice but to confront and compromise. Before Ethan, everything was clear. Fairness had never been a given. It was a power to be claimed. And this time, he held full authority to turn justice from words into action. The conference room fell silent. Only the clicking of the tablet, the rapid breaths, and the eyes of those witnessing a revolution beginning filled the space. Today, North Star Airlines was no longer an unassailable fortress of power. Today, justice took flight with Ethan Cole as the commanding pilot. The morning after San Francisco awoke to a dense, misty rain. but the events of the previous day still haunted news outlets, social media, and the boardrooms of North Star Airlines. The clip of Black Captain Ethan Cole locking the $120 million budget module spread like an unstoppable storm. The hashtag #FlyingWhileBlack exploded across Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, and aviation forums. Thousands shared the video of him being escorted from first class, with comments ranging from outrage and sympathy to awe at his courage. Major news outlets immediately reported, "Black Captain forced from first class." Locks Airlines' $120 million budget to demand justice headlines running on CNN, Fox Business, and Bloomberg. Ethan's video garnered millions of views within hours. Everything seemed to spiral beyond the control of anyone at North Star Airlines. While public opinion surged outside, internal allies began to act. Angela Rivera Pilots Union representative connected Ethan with a network of black employees who had been pressured within the airline. Flight attendants, pilots, engineers, ground staff, all who had been quietly silenced, now began submitting evidence, emails, messages, work logs, and testimonies of discriminatory incidents. Ethan sat quietly, reviewing every statement, every email, every recording. Each detail became a building block, revealing a pattern of systemic discrimination. Pilots forced to yield privileges for white VIP passengers, flight attendants encouraged to prioritize serving high-tipping potential clients, typically white technical staff required to overlook VIP mistakes, while black employees bore responsibility. He typed each line, documenting violations while confirming his access to the budget module. This way he could prove all his actions were legal, ethical, and aimed at protecting employees and the airline's reputation. North Star Airlines' stock reacted immediately. Within 2 days, shares fell 7%, investors panicked, and many funds halted investments. Corporate clients postponed contracts and boycotted the airline services. The board realized this was no longer an internal matter. It was a full-blown crisis. On social media, artists, influencers, and pilots from other airlines publicly supported Ethan. Some posted videos declaring, "We cannot allow a captain to be humiliated because of his skin color." Ethan Cole is a symbol of justice. Other pilots signed a letter to the media, "We support Ethan Cole." No one should be treated unfairly because of their race. North Star must change. Media and public discourse began labeling this a human rights crisis in the sky. Meanwhile, Ethan remained absolutely calm. He knew public opinion was his strongest weapon, exerting pressure on CEO Stanton and the board that they could not ignore. He read each tweet, comment, and passenger email. Some shared personal experiences, discrimination being demeaned, or delayed service due to race. Ethan saved everything in a folder, preparing for the board meeting the next day. Within North Star Airlines, internal chaos erupted. PR staff scrambled to control the narrative. IT and operations staff tried to access the budget module, but the system was fully locked. Only Ethan could open it. Some board members began to discuss, "If we do not yield, the airline will lose the $120 million project, the stock will drop, and reputation will be damaged." But conceding also means acknowledging discrimination and system failures. Stanton grew tense. Leonard Wilkes, red-faced. The rest divided into factions, one group seeking dialogue with Ethan for a peaceful solution, the other determined to force him out through legal measures. Ethan's family also felt the pressure. Naomi and Miles sent constant messages, and calls worried for their father. Lauren, his wife, tried to reassure them, "Dad is standing up for justice." This is more important than any fear or pressure. Ethan realized this fight was not just for himself, but a lesson for his family, for black pilots, and for the airline industry. He looked out the hotel window, rain still falling, but city lights reflected on the water like rays of hope. As public opinion media coverage and social pressure continued to mount, Ethan prepared mentally for the greatest battle, a direct confrontation with the CEO and board over the locked budget. He knew that if he held his ground, he could force the company to face the truth change policy and open opportunities for hundreds of oppressed employees. That night, he reopened his laptop, checked the budget module access, still legal, still intact. He exhaled, closing his eyes for a moment. They thought they could extinguish me. They were wrong. The fire inside me has never been smaller. Tomorrow, justice will take flight. Outside the San Francisco Sea, wind blew strong waves pounding the shore. Ethan stood at the window, eyes fixed on the horizon. In the darkness, he felt the power of truth, the support of his colleagues, and the wave of public pressure surging toward him. He was ready. Tomorrow, North Star Airlines would no longer be an absolute fortress of power. Tomorrow, justice would soar across the skies, and Ethan Cole would be at the helm. The 48th floor conference room fell silent as Ethan Cole entered, crisp in his uniform hands, gripping his laptop. Every eye was on him. CEO Stanton, tense, Leonard Wilkes, flushed with anger, board members utterly still. Ethan connected his tablet to the large screen, displaying the timeline of the incident, viral videos, internal emails, staff messages, evidence of systemic discrimination. His voice was steady and sharp. This is not just a first-class seat. This is proof of discriminatory actions the airline has tried to conceal. Wilkes shouted angrily, "You're extorting the company." Ethan simply pressed a key, and the screen flashed bright red, budget approval, suspended. Contact Administrator E. Cole. The entire $120 million budget module froze. Stanton panicked, calling IT, but no one could override Ethan's legitimate admin privileges. The board members split into factions, one focused on financial risk, the other on reputation and public perception. Pressure mounted on Stanton and Wilkes. North Star's stock fell as media scrutiny intensified. Ethan stood still, calm. Every passing second, the power and justice in his hands became clearer. Today he was not only defending his own dignity, he was forcing the entire airline to confront the truth. After hours of tense negotiations, the North Star Airlines Board of Directors finally yielded. Ethan Cole stood outside the conference room, calm but eyes blazing, presenting his demands: first, a public acknowledgement of racial discrimination; second, the establishment of anti-discrimination policies with independent oversight; third, the creation of a company-wide diversity program with regular reporting; and fourth, retaining his position of authority to ensure proper implementation. The budget system was unlocked, the $120 million module returned to the approval workflow, but everyone knew the outcome was already determined. Justice had prevailed. At the subsequent press conference in Dallas, Stanton publicly apologized to Ethan and announced his appointment as Director of Ethics and Inclusion, reporting directly to the board. The diversity program was implemented. Formerly oppressed employees gained a voice, the stock recovered rapidly, and public opinion was satisfied. 1 year later, Ethan returned to the cockpit for a landmark flight from New York to Los Angeles, with the entire crew comprised of employees from minority groups. Before takeoff, he said, "1 year ago, I was pulled from my first-class seat because of my skin color. Today I return to show that justice can take flight when someone stands up to defend dignity. Ethan had not only reclaimed his personal rights, but had created a legacy that transformed the airline industry. From the perspective of a leadership ethics expert, Ethan Cole's journey is not just a story about power or personal justice. It is proof that corporate culture can change when someone dares to confront wrongdoing, stand up for dignity, and use knowledge responsibly. The message Ethan conveys is clear. Justice is not merely a choice, it is a responsibility. When systems protect power at the expense of people, it is the courageous individuals who drive real change. If you believe that justice and dignity must be defended, like this video, and subscribe so you don't miss other inspiring stories. Also comment a short phrase that reflects your viewpoint. Stand up to share the belief that every courageous act can make a significant impact. Let Ethan Cole and his journey serve as a reminder: dignity cannot be ignored, and justice will soar when we refuse to remain silent.